Good morning. It's Monday again. It's the 15th of May, 2023. This is Mirador Television, broadcasting from the White Hart Hotel in Lewes, East Sussex, a wonderful hotel with a terrific history. This is where democracy began. Yeah, did. And we're overwhelmed with it, particularly since it seems to be in short supply around the world at the moment. Still, that's another tale, another day. We're going to just take a look at the newspapers now. We had one hell of a weekend, by the way. The Speakers Festival drew to a very satisfactory conclusion on last night. Good crowds for the speakers. We chatted to Chris Mullin, a long-time MP, and his view on what's happening in the political world right now. We chatted to Wendy Joseph, Lady Wendy Joseph, who is the judge at the Old Bailey and oversaw some of the top crimes. And we also spoke briefly to Peter Hitchen, the very controversial columnist, and controversial he was and controversial he is. And it was a short interview, snappy to say the least. And he had one or two things to mention, particularly about his new book, which was all about the demise of the grammar school. Something that touches my heart. Right, okay, let us now take a look at what's happening in the world, shall we? Yes, we shall. We shall do that because it's full of cant and nonsense, of course, this morning. The Daily Telegraph kicks off with Braverman pushes the PM to deliver on migrants. Right, well, migrants it is. There's centre stage this morning. And let's see. Yes, okay. Here we go, yeah. And what the Braverman is saying, and the Daily Telegraph is reporting, is that she is pushing the Prime Minister to deliver on the immigrant-based issue. The Home Secretary, Suella Braverman, is going to make a speech warning that immigration risks British people forgetting how to do things for ourselves. The Conservatives made a pledge in their 2019 manifesto to bring down overall migration. But the next set of official figures are expected to show close to 700,000 migrants have come into the country. That's a lot. The Times carries on with Braverman's speech, and what she's claiming is Britons will forget how to work. Braverman says immigration must be reduced before the general election because the UK has become too dependent on foreign labour. There's no good reason why British workers can't be trained to fill vacancies in jobs such as lorry drivers and butchers, Miss Braverman will say at her speech, which is to be made in London. All right, Sunak under pressure to get tougher on migrants. Right, well, we can go back to migrants, can't we? I think, yes, we can. This is the I. Rishi Sunak is under pressure to get tougher on migrants as new figures are set to show the number of people arriving on UK borders has increased from 500,000 last year to up to 800,000. Well, we've added on 100,000 in the newspaper this year. Ms. Braverman is expected to call for tighter restrictions on HGV lorry drivers, fruit pickers, and butchers, as she tells Conservatives it's not racist to control borders. And this whole business of racism raises its head again. It's very unfortunate. The Daily Express. All right, now what we're getting into some nitty gritty stuff now, and I'm not sure that we've got a slide for this. We should have. We certainly cold one. But, no, we haven't. So we'll do away with that one for a moment. And the headline in the Daily Express is outrage over Labour plans to reopen Brexit. What the newspaper says is some leading Tories have accused Labour of trying to drag Britain back into the EU. So Keir Starmer is planning to enable EU citizens to vote, as well as 16 and 17-year-olds, if elected. Some Conservatives have claimed that Labour is using the manifesto pledge to prepare a sinister plot and rig the system in order to hold another referendum on Europe, the paper says. Now, we'll split that into two halves. One, I have never understood why, once a vote was taken, that people just didn't settle down and accept it. That was what the people at the time wanted, and we get on with it. But no, there are those who get emotional about it, and I've never understood that. If, in fact, we are to rejoin Europe, which I think probably we will in the fullness of time, should do it in an ordered and sensible way, because rushing into these things just shows that all you start is the divisions even deeper. And that means that we are a nation not in love with itself. We're not at ease. We fight bitterly about everything now, and that has got to stop. Okay, so we're different types of people within one shell, but we do have a common purpose, which is the country, and we need to start to remember that instead of all this nonsense. The Daily Mail, it carries on, Starmer to use EU citizens to rig the polls. Oh, that's the second half. I'm not anti-youth. Look at me, tell how old I am, and that one would expect that I might well have views and thoughts that diverge from the very young. But I can remember quite clearly at 16 and 17, I didn't know my arse from my tip. The fact of the matter is that at 16 and 17, I had no way of making a reasoned call on who I should vote for. I didn't have experience. I hadn't been anywhere in the world. I hadn't sat with people who are fairly sophisticated and knowledgeable. I hadn't done any of those things. And I was supposed to vote. That would have been a travesty, because the general populace would have been at the mercy of young voters. And that is what is being suggested here by Labour. I don't care whether it's Labour, Conservative or Liberal who actually would like to do it. But the fact of the matter is if it happens, it will be an absolute disaster for the country. And there is no question that the Mail has got that one right. Yes, of course we want to see youngsters, young people integrated into the system and doing things for the general good. But in an ordered way, in a sensible way, not in this always, well, we can do this and we can do that and we can do the other, and it must be done by tomorrow. It's crazy in the extreme. Absolutely crazy. The Sun continues with its Philip Schofield and Holly Willoughby stuff on whichever channel it is that they appear. It's not this one, I know that. And I get a bit tired of all this nonsense. So they're a couple of entertainers. Why are we getting so excited about whether they'll split or not? The other thing is that I believe that fighting this thing out in the courts is damaging to absolutely everybody. Why it's got to this point, we'll never know from the background. But it is a full-scale war being waged through the Sun. And I suppose that the station itself is in turmoil. Right, okay. The Financial Times. What does it lead with? Right, imports on the G7 and the EU will put pressure on Russia by banning gas imports on routes where Moscow has cut supplies. The paper says, according to officials involved in the talks, the decision will be finalized by G7, the leaders at a summit in Hiroshima this week. It's the first time the trade of pipeline gas has been blocked by Western powers since Russia invaded the Ukraine. The paper notes. Okay. The Mirror has a story of a hero, a rugby league star in the Leeds marathon, carrying his colleague, who is disabled, across the Irish at the finish line of the Leeds marathon. This man, in sporting terms, rugby league, is something of a hero, and he got to the finishing line, saw his colleague was in distress, picked him up, and carried him across the line. I think that's a wonderful thing to do, particularly since, like everything else, breakfast television, breakfast implies that we're bigger than we are. Mirador Television in Break an Egg is very much into looking at various issues in the world, in Europe, in the UK, and on a local issue. And I think that the issue of the pipeline is one that we want to keep our eyes on, because if people are going to relax on the sources of energy. We've got our own expert in Stuart Dolby, who will be along on Wednesday to bring you up to date in his program, Energy Matters. That's more or less the headlines as we see them at the moment. Oh, the metros. The nurses give Sunak the double digit, they say. And it is not anywhere near sure exactly what's going to happen. It suggests that it suggests that the nurses, through their union leader, say they'll strike until Christmas if necessary, unless they get a double-digit pay rise. The paper says Pat Cullen, the General Secretary of the Royal College of Nursing, has warned Rishi Sunak not to underestimate her union members after they rejected a 9% pay deal. 9% ain't bad. Not bad at all. There we are. Right, the Star. God bless the Star. What would we do without it? What the Star is saying is summer is on hold. We've got a little few days of chilly, the way that it's been the last couple of days. It blames a Scandinavian shiver for the recent cold spell. An edited picture of a swimmer in front of some ice caps is predominant on the front page. The paper says we will have to wait for a month for warmer temperatures of 27 degrees. Oh, there we are. That's a start of the day, isn't it? Lots of doom and gloom. The domestic one with the row of access to various schemes and situations and playing politics and so on and so forth is one that throws everything up in the air. And the Financial Times. Oh no, I did the Financial Times. Yes. So lots of folderol around at the moment, and that's the way it stands. Locally, there is not a great deal around. There's been another death from a traffic accident. And some more fighting in the streets, which that whole thing is starting to paint a picture of a society out of control. And perhaps our local councillors now they're being elected in the fullness of time after the aura of, wow, we won, chaps, it will start to take a look at these things as being urgent. You know, the green issues are fine. I'm not against green issues, but not when they start to replace some of the key issues which we face in our day-to-day life in Sussex, or for that matter, Chichester, all points east and all points west. That's the story. It's a light rain today, a high of 15. So a fair amount going on for a Monday morning, and we'll bring you as much as we can when things happen. And yes, we get weary. We had a long day on yesterday, but nonetheless, here we are still. Let's see, the Metro. It more or less says the same thing as the other papers. The head of the union, Pat Cullen, saying not to underestimate her union members after they already neglected a 9% pay deal. That's right. Okay, what's the time? It's 8:49. We've been rabbiting on for 20 minutes. I think if I can, I haven't made my appeal for Parkinson's recently. Yeah, so be careful I don't forget about that. See if I can forget it. I do it every day, but. No. No, it's not just readily at hand. Let's see anyway. Well, let's just recap what we did on the weekend. I went and got my jab on Saturday morning, and I have to say that the people that deliver these COVID things and so on are very efficient and very charming. I was due to have my jab just around 10 o'clock. I turned up at 8:30 because I happened to be in town, and was made most welcome. Nobody said, off you go because you've got nothing to do with the arrangements. On the contrary, they put me into the queue. I got the treatment. Um, isn't that funny? Now, talking to you has triggered just something. I have received a jar of coffee, and the coffee is most welcome, of course. But I've started to tell you a story now, and I've forgotten what the hell the story's about. Right, we were talking about going and having a jab and how good it was, how efficient they were. The ladies, mostly ladies, and making sure that you got your jab okay. The other thing that had happened on the weekend was that the final days of Lewis Speakers Festival took place, and a very well run operation it was, and a very good crowds turned out, and we were able to interview several people. Some of the interviews went well, some they went badly, but all in all, we have in the next hour we're going to have the two Bs, I now call them, the two barristers, and they're a hoot. That's Richard and Philip, and they really their days. They've both been head of chambers in Lewis, because they make sure you understand the distinction between a barrister and a solicitor. The solicitor does the grunt work. The barrister, who normally has a gift of the gab, appears before the beak, before the people who deliver justice, if you like. They are talking, and we may well have, before the end of the program, an interview with Chris Mullin, a long-time politician, and who's had a fair amount of experience. He was chatting to no, I'm trying to remember who he's chatting to. It's to Stuart Dolby. He was chatting to Stuart Dolby. So there's a couple of things we've got for you after we take a half-hour break. It's 8:53, and no time like the present to just once again review the newspapers. Let's start at the top and go down to the bottom. It seems satisfactory last time. The Daily Telegraph. Braverman pushes the Prime Minister to deliver on the pledges that the Conservatives made to bring migrants under control. The Times. Britons will forget how to work, says Braverman. And her thesis is we've allowed in 80,000 people. That's 10,000 more than this time last year. And that they take the jobs, and they're willing to do so. And that quite often their jobs that a Brit has turned down because he doesn't see the import of it, or he doesn't think that he can do the job very well. It is apply for the job, says Braverman. Sunak under pressure to get tougher on migrants. That's where the I is reporting that that we need to keep an eye on. Let's see how we're treating the migration situation, because what she and many others are saying is there are lots of jobs now that our workforce won't do. And it quotes driving buses for one. But we've got to keep an eye on migration without being anti-humanitarian in letting people through the front door. It's 9:55, by the way, and the Express is even more tense about the thing. Labour plan to reopen Brexit, and some of the senior judges are doing that. Are doing trying to reopen the Brexit issue so that we could go for another EU referendum. But perhaps the most sinister thing I find there is they also want to bundle in with it, giving the vote to 16 and 17-year-olds. Look, I'm sorry, 16 and 17-year-olds. Many of you are very competent, got very good minds and so on. But at 16 and 17, you have not been around the world. You have not been able to see or show or demonstrate any knowledge of what's there in the White Hart Hotel, for instance, where robust debate is all very well. But just reopening a plan, not a good idea at all, not in our view here. It is 9:57, and I have punched in something like up until 11 o'clock last night anyway. So if I'm seeming a little vague and a little weary, that's why. I mean, at one time, I used to have very good excuses for staying out at night. I don't anymore. So people check up on me to see whether I'm home and I'm in bed, and making sure that I'm getting my resources in a row. And indeed, I try very hard. But as you can tell from the headlines that I just read, everything is so very, very vague. So very, very vague. I'm not sure that it's worth it all the time. It's 8:58. The weather outside at the moment is not bad. It's supposed to rain, to drizzle. And I think the temperature is going to rise to about 15, which is a bit lower than usual and normal for the last few times. And all in all, not a bad sort of day for the moment. But the heat wave that we've been promised is, according to one newspaper, is a month away. And that this is the sort of weather we'll have to put up with as we go through the early part of the morning. Oh dear, the early part of the morning, and then me racing in the nights. Mainly because I'm not being a naughty boy. Television it takes a lot of looking after, and I have to, not just a pretty face appearing on air like this day in, day out, but I have to join those who say, let's make sure we get it right with the material that we put out in papers and into the community. Let's just make sure we get it right, because if we don't get it right, we're in for a more shocking time as a nation, and for that matter as the world, than we've experienced so far. And I think the experiences that we've had in the last couple of months is far beyond the call of duty. And that's what the politicians have got to address. If they don't know, they should find out. And if they can't find out, then by all means discuss some debate about whether we should be paying more attention to the day-to-day issues and not for principles, which all political parties are the same. They can't leave it alone. All right, it's 9 o'clock. We'll be back at 9:30 with the two Bs, the two barristers, Richard and Philip, who have one of their usually enigmatic and interesting talks or chats between the two of them, showing us what it's like behind the robing room in a courthouse. All right, until then, until we're back, we shall say toodle pip to you, and hopefully my ramblings will be overtaken by the course of time. No, dear, I wasn't talking about having a pint over a coffin. All right, here we go.